So believe it or not, this vlog series is going to be 5 years old. 5 years later on this year. And over the 5 years that I've been doing this vlog series, mostly in the beginning, I made a vlog about every single car that I have owned in my lifetime. All the ones that I have personally had. Not just the ones that my family's had, the ones that I've had. And today, I've decided we're going to rank all of the cars. I'm going to rank all the cars. And we'll see which cars I would not mind having back if I've ever really had the opportunity. So, welcome to this installment of Mike's Vehicle Vlogs. Thank you so much for joining me today. I might sound a little funny. I am coming back from bronchitis again because for some reason my immune system hates me. Who gets bronchitis in the middle of August? Apparently, I do. It is not COVID. When I went to the doctors earlier this week, they didn't see enough symptoms to test me for COVID. But I've been on an antibiotic. I'm getting better. And honestly, I've been cooped up in the house for about a week now, other than going to the doctors and getting the prescriptions. So I haven't really been feeling like going outside and doing an actual hands-on vlog or anything. And it's it's been a while since we've actually done a vlog here from the desk, and I think it's been a little while since we've done any kind of storytelling. So I was thinking about it, what I could possibly do, because I'm always feeling productive, and I want to make some sort of vlog for you guys for whichever week this is airing. But I kind of had the idea to talk about, or not really talk about, but revisit all the cars that I've had over my life. And then I decided to rank them by, which ones I would like to have more than others, or which one obviously I want least, which one basically I would never want again, or which one I wouldn't mind taking in a heartbeat if I had the opportunity. So that's what we're gonna do now. We're kind of gonna revisit all of the cars that I've already talked about and all the cars that I've had. So as of currently, I have owned 9 total cars since I got my license back in 2003. And 2 of those cars, obviously, I own currently, which would be the Ford Fusion and my Pontiac Grand Am GT. So neither one of those cars are going to be included in today's ranking because I still have them. Both of them I am very pleased with. I'm extremely pleased about my 15 Fusion. We just celebrated our 3rd year anniversary with that car, going into year number 4, and I just posted the anniversary vlog a couple of vlogs ago, so give that a watch if you haven't. I must say that car has been completely phenomenal over the past 3 years. Very, very, very little issues. Almost none. Everything that's happened to that car, or that I've had to take care of, was already existent when I bought it, so those don't even count. I haven't had any new issues with the car. So watch that if you haven't. And as far as the Grand Am, well, for a $750 car, that car has been fantastic so far also. I'm absolutely in love with that car. So those two cars are not included in this video, in this ranking, because obviously they are still current. Also not included in this would be the 15 Ford Fiesta. My wife drives that car, and once again, absolutely love that car. It's been really good to us. We've had that car for over 4 years at this point, and still no new issues have come up. But again, it's a current car, so it too will not be included in this ranking. So here are the 7 cars that are left that I've once owned that we will be going through and ranking in today's vlog. The 94 Pontiac Sunbird, the 92 Pontiac Bonneville, the 99 Oldsmobile Alero, the 03 Pontiac Aztek, the 08 Pontiac Grand Prix, and the 11 Ford Escape. I am also including my first project, my first successful project, the 01 Pontiac Aztek GT. That's obviously included because I do not own that car anymore also. So the way that I've decided to kind of rank this was just on a couple of things. You know, issues that I've had with the car might take, a part in it, obviously. In some cases, it could be factors of how fun the car is to drive. It could be, even how attached I've been to the car, because every one of these cars that I've had, I've had some attachment to. I just love all the cars that I've had for the most part, and in some cases, some of these cars were hard to let go. But the majority of this is coming from just how much fun, how much I liked driving the car for the most part, and that's where it's going to come into play for the majority of these rankings. So let's begin. So we're going to start this countdown with the car that I would honestly never pick again, which is surprising because I would have thought that I wouldn't really mind having any car that I've ever had. But there is one car, even though I enjoyed it while I had it, just kind of thinking about it and really considering all of the problems that were kind of existent with the car over the time that I did have it, and just a couple of the fun factor and stuff. Well, number 7 is going to go to the 08 Pontiac Grand Prix. Now don't get me wrong, I loved having the Grand Prix. It was a pretty fun car to have. It was quick with the 3800 Series 3 V6 in it, and I honestly just loved the way the car looked inside and out. It was a very awesome car in its own way. It was one of the longest cars that I've had. I had that car, I think, a little over 4 years before I ended up selling it to my brother. And even then, after I sold it to him, he got a few years out of it before he decided to trade it in. But that car was honestly the reason why, in a way, I lost faith in newer GM products. That Grand Prix, I had problems with that Grand Prix that I never really expected to have from any car. I had to have the power steering rack replaced within the first year that I bought it, because the rack started leaking, and even trying to add fluid to the system was a pain, because the fluid reservoir was on the back side of the engine, up against the firewall, down toward the bottom almost, you couldn't even really get to the cap because you had a couple of thick lines pretty much on top of them. So that was an inconvenience because the rack itself was a couple $100s that I had to save up for. And in the meantime, I have to keep adding fluid to it, which was another big inconvenience because you got to try to fight to get the cap off and get a funnel down in the reservoir to obviously fill it up. So, I mean, that problem was very annoying. Another problem was right before I was getting ready to sell it to my brother, the throttle body was acting up with this drive-by-wire system. I was one of the lucky ones who was getting a reduced engine power warning several times with that car, and it was always around the same time of morning when that would happen, so I always kind of anticipated it for a while. I tried swapping out the throttle body actuator with one from a junkyard, and all it did was make matters worse, so I didn't even leave that on there. So I don't know what happened. The problem ended up clearing up itself. I don't know if maybe there was a connection issue when I reconnected everything, and everything kind of was fine. My brother did tell me it happened to him one time when he had it, and that was actually after he had had it for a while. So, but that's just another thing that I never thought would happen. That's a really bad thing. But you know, the really big thing that irritated me the most about this car, and I never really got it figured out, was the fact that every time it would be shifting gears around 40 miles an hour, which is probably going into overdrive at that point, and you would want to just kind of accelerate a little bit without having any kind of shifting take place back into a lower gear or anything, it would do this. It would rock, you know. And you know, there was somebody told me, my one friend who used to work on my cars years ago told me he thought the transmission was coming apart. I was losing overdrive, so he even told me to drive the car and leave it in third. But you know what? It was happening in third too. So I don't know if there was an issue with the torque converter or the torque, the lockup clutch maybe. But that's just something that would happen, and it would be very annoying. The only way I can get that thing to stop is if I disconnected the battery for a half hour to an hour, which is advice that I passed on to my brother after he bought the car, so he was unhooking the battery. But once the battery was unhooked and you rehooked everything back up and drove it, you can drive that car for quite a few drives, and it wouldn't do it, and then one day it would just start doing it again. So what do? You go back home and you disconnect the battery. So I don't know if it was, you know, something in the PCM doing it or what, but it was very annoying. And I don't know if all of these Grand Prix have experienced that. I'm assuming mine's not the only one, based on some comments that I've read on past videos of the issue. But no, I never found out what it was, and I never. Once the car was gone, after, you know, I never really cared to do any more research. But that was the big thing. That was an annoying thing to deal with. So I don't know. Other than that, the car was nice. I had a pretty nice equipped Grand Prix. I'm pretty sure mine was a fleet vehicle based on the options and stuff that my Grand Prix had. I found a fleet spec sheet and it basically matched everything to what mine had. So I really did like the setup of the car and stuff. It drove nice. I don't think it was the most comfortable ride. It was kind of harsh at times, but it's a sports sedan, so I think that's just the nature of the beast in that one. But to be quite honest, that is a car that I never want to have again. If somebody gave one to me, but I wouldn't pay for one. That's just, you know, that is my least, you know, desired car out of all the cars that I've ever had. And no, that's number 7, I guess. It's a shame because, you know, that was It was an okay car, but just too many weird issues. Too many weird issues. Speaking of weird issues, the car that I would take, or that I wouldn't want to have after the Grand Prix, so this would be number 6, would be the 1992 Pontiac Bonneville. My beloved Bonneville. I named it Maroon when I had it. It was my second car, and you know, it was an okay ride. It really wasn't bad at all. I would definitely take this car over the Grand Prix, but I still really wouldn't want to look for one, especially with it being a 92, and around here they're just about all gone. In fact, I don't think I've seen an older style Bonneville like that in quite a long time at this point. Heck, I barely even see the last generation Bonnevilles now. Every once in a while I'll see one, but I definitely don't see them like the ones that I had. I really liked this Bonneville. I liked the way that this thing looked. I liked the way that this thing drove, to be honest. I mean, for the age that it was when I had it, which was, I was driving it from 2004 into 2005, halfway through 2005, so I got about a little over a year's use out of it. It drove pretty well. I liked the look of it. I liked the inside of it. It was the first car that I had ever had that had things like cruise control, power windows, power door locks, powered seat even. I mean, it was a nicely loaded car compared to my first car, and you know, I do in a way wish I had more time with it. I wish I had a little more knowledge of cars back then, because maybe I could have used the car, you know, to learn on and fix the things that were wrong with it. Basically, there were a lot of electrical things wrong with this car. I honestly think the car was in an accident. Didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to that fact when we bought the car from one of them little tiny private car lots. I didn't even pick the car, to be quite honest. My mom did. If you want the full story with that, check out the vlog where I talk about this Bonneville, the whole story of how we ended up getting it, and basically, like I said, everything about that car is in that vlog. But yeah, basically, it was all electrical stuff. So I don't know. I just don't know. The car had no dome lights because you put the fuse in and you shut the door. After so long, the lights would come on and kill the battery, so the fuse had to stay out. It was always missing a taillight bulb because when you put a taillight in it or a bulb in the socket, something inside the car quit working, so you gotta leave the bulb out to keep the circuit working. Again, I don't know. The rear defogger didn't work. You push the fogger button, after like a minute the light goes out, and then you lose power to the seats, you lose power to the windows, I think, and the door locks. That whole circuit dies, you know. So I don't know. That was basically it. I had to open the trunk with a screwdriver because one time I put the key in the lock and the whole cylinder came out and it didn't even open the trunk. So I had to use a screwdriver to open the trunk all the time because the inside trunk release didn't work. But yeah, that car just had so many weird issues. But at the same time, it was such a good looking car. It ran fantastic. It had the original 3800 V6 in it, so that engine would probably still be running like a champ today. I mean, it was a good sounding engine. First car I ever had with a tack, so it was always fun matching the tack with how hard the engine was, you know, running, the way it sounded. You know, I can get that car to peel out with the front wheels, you know.
Bet you I can get that lady over there to look at me. Yeah.
It was very easy, probably because the car needed tires. I don't even remember the shape of the tires, but yeah, I mean, in a way, I wish I had more time with the car. The whole brake line issue is why I got rid of it. Just didn't have the money, didn't know anybody who can fix the brake lines for me. The brake line actually blew, and the car was out of commission for about a month until I decided it was, time to look for another car because I didn't know anybody who could fix it. So yeah, I mean, I do miss the car. For a while, I kind of really considered it being my least favorite car that I've owned. But, after really thinking about all of my cars and stuff, I decided to bump it up over the Grand Prix. So that might say a little bit of something that, it's, I miss it more than the Grand Prix, and, if I could, I would consider having one back, but that's impossible. If only I had known somebody who did the brake lines, I probably could have still had it for a little longer. At number 5, and I'm kind of surprised I didn't really rank this up any higher, but I don't know, I guess I've got my reasons. The 03 Pontiac Aztek. The 03 Pontiac Aztek was my very first Aztek, and I was so excited when I got that car. I loved that car. I was looking at SUVs and stuff. I looked at an Equinox, I looked at a Torrent, and then I looked at a brand new 07 Impala. I was thinking, maybe that I can lease one. I was thinking about maybe I can lease an 07 Equinox, and I couldn't do it. Those were just too much, and I remember leaving the Chevrolet dealership. I was walking out the door after returning. I think I returned the Impala. I had the Impala for a 24-hour test drive, but I returned it, and as we were walking out of the dealership, I happened to look, straight ahead at the used car line, and there it was. It was almost at the very end, this silver 03 Pontiac Aztek, and it was snowing. There was a lot of snow, actually. So walked over, kind of used my hands to, get the snow off of the windows and whatnot. And it was enough for me to go back in and ask if I can, get the keys for it. So they gave me the keys, and I went back out, unlocked it, got in, started it up, looked around, and after many years, of wanting one, even as a kid when they first came out, that was, I asked if I can take it, and they lent it to me again for 24 hours, I think it was. But I had it for, as if it was a daily driver, and that was it. I needed to have it. So it was doable. It was the first car that I'd ever financed. So that was a big step for me. It was like my first real big purchase. And yeah, I was extremely happy with it. I absolutely loved that car. It was a, I think 1SB trim, I think is what when I was researching it a while ago, is what it was. I still have the original window sticker with the folder. But again, all of that's in a vlog by itself if you want to look at that. Actually, the 6th vlog I ever made was about that very first Aztek, so all the stuff is in there about that. But, I think for the most part I got pretty lucky with that Aztek. I did have issues with it. I did have a couple of weird electrical things with it. Maybe not that many. I had the fan speed switch burned on the inside, burnt the connector. So I ended up just replacing the switch, and surprisingly enough, the connector wasn't bad enough to not work. But but it worked. We had what else happened to that thing? The thing with the shifter was annoying. The shifter wouldn't come out of park, so the shift interlock for some reason quit working, and I had to use the emergency release underneath the center console to get the car out of park. But eventually I zip tied the thing so it would come out of park all the time. I left the sunroof open one time, not open, but I left it vented. Thought it was closed all the way, and it wasn't. And then it poured overnight, and one day when I got into it, the entire ceiling was soaked, the floor was soaked, the gas gauge quit working for a week and a half. Eventually everything started working again, but I was disappointed about that. I had the intake gasket job done twice on that car, because the first time the person I hired to do it screwed up, and the issue reoccurred about a year later. So we did that job twice, and I'm pretty sure after the second time the engine on that thing was not as healthy as it was pretty much during the entire time I've had it, only because it would it sounded like it would tick a little bit more than it used to. So before I traded it in, that kind of worried me. Right before I traded it in, actually, I started having problems with the heater. I wouldn't get heat all that often, so I don't know if the heater core was getting plugged up or if something else was taking place, but that was actually one of the factors into why I was going to trade it in, even though I didn't want to. My logical thinking with that was just kind of thought it would be worth buying another car at that point than dumping a bunch of money that I didn't have into that one, and it was just about paid off anyway. So, but nonetheless, I was very much in love with this silver Aztek, and for the most part, you know, it was a great car. I did have that car, I think, for a little over 4 years, and it was tough for me to get rid of that car. I replaced it with the Grand Prix, and I remember when I found the Grand Prix and was interested in it, I wasn't really expecting to get the Grand Prix. So when I got the approval and you know, I drove the car, my Aztek, back home to clean everything out, it was kind of a sad moment. I was excited, and then when I got to the house and started cleaning all my stuff out, I was really bummed. And then obviously I made a whole video, one more tour of this Aztek before it went back to the dealership, and then I said my goodbye, and that's where we obviously left it. I have since found out through Carfax that in 2015 that car was totaled. It went through several owners after me, and somehow I believe it was near the Columbus, Ohio area. It was being driven down there, and somebody, I think, rear-ended it, and then it got rear-ended into something else. So it basically, I think, got sandwiched. From my understanding with the Carfax report. So it got sandwiched in between two cars, and it was obviously declared totaled. I don't remember what the mileage was, but I just know that it was in some time in 2015. You know, it was done. So when I read that on the Carfax, that was sad also. But nothing lasts forever, apparently, and yeah, I do miss that Aztek. It was nice. There wasn't anything wrong with the body of that car. I think there was only one little ding on the passenger door, and that was because of my ex, which was an accident. She opened the door the one time, and there was one of those yellow concrete poles, or yeah, like one of those poles, parking poles or something. And when she opened it, the wind knocked the edge of the door into something on that pole, and it put a little tiny ding in the corner, the edge of the door. So the transmission was another big thing with that car. I think it was the 1 to 2 shifts. The transmission started lagging a little bit. I felt like before it was going into second gear, it got kicked into neutral every so often. I think it was usually when it was cold out, and then once it warmed up it was better. So it may have just needed a fluid change, filter change or something. But again, that with the heater thing, that's why I decided maybe it was time, instead of spending money on just replacing everything. If I had the money, I probably would have kept the car. I liked it very much. The fourth car that I'm ranking would be the 2011 Ford Escape XLT. The Ford Escape was my last car before I bought my current Fusion. I've got, pretty sure, a ton of vlogs on the Escape. I never had a story about the Escape because when I was doing all my storytelling, it was basically in the very, very beginning of this vlog series. So I still had the Escape, and we were still making current videos on the Escape. But you know what? That Escape, man, that up until recently was the best car that I ever had, hands down. I had it for almost 3 years. It was 2 years, and I'm pretty sure 11 months. I was 1 month shy of its 3-year anniversary. And yeah, I have nothing bad to say about that Escape. I would definitely buy another one of them, you know, if I had the opportunity to. And you know, they're still around. I see them all the time still. Even at my dealership, we have a couple on the lot right now that are this body style. And if I had the way to finance one or pay for one right now, I would probably get another one, because especially as of recently, I really could have use for an SUV, just to carry things, you know, to use as a, you know, use as something to haul things. You know, we just bought a couple of furniture stuff, you know, I could have used that to haul the furniture. We bought a TV stand a couple months ago, and I had to borrow my mom's because I don't have a car that can haul a box that is huge, you know. That Escape would have done it if I still had it. But I think I just kind of miss having the versatility. So along with that, that Escape was excellent. It was an excellent car. I didn't have any real issues with it. I had a fan blower resistor that needed to be changed at one point, and I had to fix a leaking transmission seal on the driver's side front axle. That was it. I think the car was going to need stabilizer links. It started making some noises over bumps before I traded it in. And a battery. I think the battery was finally getting weak. But yeah, I have nothing bad to say about that car. I loved everything that car had. That was an XLT with a lot of upgraded features like the sync, voice command, Sirius satellite radio, which I didn't subscribe to, but I had it in the beginning. The automatic headlights, the sunroof, the wet trunk in the back under the cargo floor. It was even the color that I wanted. I specifically, when I wanted to get an Escape, I specifically was looking for that color, that steel blue metallic, and I was also looking for one with the charcoal interior, because a lot of the steel blue metallics have the tan interior, and I don't want tan. I wanted the black. So I finally found the blue with the black, and I went for it. So yeah, that car, if I could have that car back, if I was able to keep that car and get the Fusion at the same time, I most certainly would have. That Escape was really too good to be true. And yeah, I really have nothing to complain about when it comes to that car. The only real reason why I got rid of it was because, well, when I found my Fusion, I really liked everything that the base Fusion had, and I've driven many Fusions over the course of documenting these cars, my other video series, and I loved how they drove. I loved how they looked. I just loved the design everywhere, the comfort, and I guess the big thing was I just got kind of tired of driving the SUV all the time. The boxy Escape obviously didn't feel like a car. It definitely had an SUV feel, and there was really nothing wrong with it. I just kind of missed having a car with a sportier feel. But that being said, it was the first Ford that I had ever picked out to own. And I'm also very pleased with my very first Ford experience when it comes to that Escape. So it was a phenomenal vehicle, and I really do miss it extremely so. And if I could have that one back, I definitely would snatch it up in a heartbeat. But who knows? Maybe I'll still get one. Maybe in time I'll find another one. The big thing about them, though, is the rot, where the rear wheel wells start to rot out because of a design flaw. They rot out from the inside out, and that's just something that is kind of hard to escape. No pun intended. But it's just something that's kind of hard to escape from when they all do it. So it's going to be hard to find one if I ever wanted to get one. It's going to be hard to find one that's not going to be all messed up in the back there and look crappy, unless it's already been properly fixed, which I guess there's a technique to fix it, but I don't know. And I'm not a body man, so I don't know how to do it. But either way, 2011 Ford Escape, that's my number 4, and yeah, I love it. I love that car. I would take it back. Number 3 goes to my very first car, the 94 Pontiac Sunbird LE. My Sunbird was not a convertible. It would have been cool if it was, though. But it wasn't. My very first car was this red 94 Pontiac Sunbird LE 2-door that my dad bought off of somebody he worked with for $500. And the whole plan was for him and I to share this car, because his car, which at the time was a 1982 Plymouth Grand Fury, which sadly enough was in immaculate condition when he bought it. Well, it had been totaled. My dad was in an accident. So yeah, it got totaled, and my dad didn't have a car, and my mom had the van, the Windstar at the time. So we obviously couldn't have just one car with them both working. So my dad found this Pontiac Sunbird, and like I said, the plan was for him and I to share it, especially with me getting my license. I had my permit at the time that he bought the car, so that's how that worked. I remember the first time that I drove the car, the transmission started giving out, so it wouldn't leave first gear after a while, and it made it home, and then once it got home and you put it in gear, you had nothing. So that was smoked, and we had it towed to this little shop, or it was like one of them private shops or something, and the car sat there for months and months and months waiting for a transmission. So in the meantime, my parents are in the process of getting divorced. And you know, the whole lifestyle of our family was changing and stuff, and my dad ended up moving out, and then, you know, eventually, shortly before I got my license officially, the car was finally done. My dad had it taken care of, and with him gone, he said, it's all mine. He ended up getting another car from my aunt, so I had my Sunbird all to myself. And you know, it wasn't the greatest car in the world, but it was the greatest thing to me. Her name was Red Lightning, and I named that car Red Lightning as a joke because it was not fast at all. It was very slow. It was sluggish, you know, but it had like this race car sound, and I don't know what it was about that 2-liter engine that was in that car, but the way that it sounded was just, it sounded so cool under the hood. You give that thing a few revs and it just had this woo woo, you know, noise about it, and I loved it. I absolutely loved hearing that sound. The car was very basic. I don't remember what the LE trim was in the lineup of that car, but it had manual windows. It did not have cruise control. It did not have a CD player. It didn't have wiper delay, intermittent wipers. It didn't even have that. It did have power door locks, amazingly enough. Automatic door locks, actually. It would, when you put the car in drive, and the door locks would automatically lock. In fact, that car locked me out one time doing that when I had it running in the winter and I needed it to get warm, and I shut the door, and I was at my brother's friend's house, and shut the door, and the car locked, and I had to wait over an hour for somebody to take me back to my house to get my spare keys for it. And let me tell you, that car was very toasty inside after an hour. So there's that. This car had so many firsts, obviously. You know, it was the first car that I've ever had. It was the first car that, you know, gave me freedom. When you're 16, and even though you're still an adolescent in a way, you have a car, and you feel like you have places to go, but you don't. You just you just find reasons to get in a car and just cruise. You know, I used to put the windows down in the summer because the air conditioning didn't work, and I had my little portable CD player with my cassette adapter, and I would, you know, blast all my CDs and stuff. I mean, there are CDs that I have now that I bought then, like Third Eye Blind's first album, and I bought Sugar Ray's Floored album, Switchfoot's The Beautiful Letdown. I mean, there's a lot of albums that I remember going to the used CD store in town and buying them and listening to the very first time in that car after leaving the store. And to this day, when I hear some of those albums, you know, I picture myself in my Sunbird driving with the windows down and just enjoying life, you know, just really having a good time. And you know, I miss those days, you know. Along with my first car, I had my first accident, and there was a lady who ran a red light. She hit me from the side, from the passenger side, completely put a huge crater in the side of the Sunbird. My brother was back there, actually sitting on that side at the time, and if he didn't have his seatbelt on. And it's, you know, seatbelts will save you, but in this instance it was a good thing he didn't have it, because if he had his seatbelt on, he probably would have had some broken ribs. You know, he would have been pinned, he would have been trapped. That's how hard she hit us. It bowed in the entire side of the car in the back. But when she hit us, he actually, the way that the car slid, because it was raining. It's a good thing it was raining too. If it was dry pavement, the impact probably would have been a lot harder. But she hit us. My car fishtailed. I had control of the car, and my brother actually flew to the other side of the back seat, completely unharmed. But if he had a seatbelt on, the way that how hard she hit us, he would have been stuck. He would have been injured. So that pretty much devastated me. Just gotten some new tires for that car. All 4 tires were replaced. And yeah, that was I thought the end of the car. But I was able to buy the car back for $87. They obviously declared it totaled. It technically wasn't even the safest thing to drive because of how bad everything crumpled underneath. That car was not perfectly straight anymore. I mean, to the eye, you probably wouldn't really notice it, but there was structural damage under that car. But I kept driving it. That's part of how we got the Bonneville that I just talked about. But I kept driving that Sunbird. I drove that car. I just did not want to let that car go. That's how much I liked it. Aside from that, it was actually after the accident that the car started to kind of give us a little bit of problems. The only real thing that was wrong with that car, and again, if I knew more about the car, the knowledge that I have today, I probably could have even had that car a little longer than I did. But the only thing that would really happen is that car would not want to start sometimes. It would just, crank and crank and crank. And crank and crank and crank. And eventually it would start. My mom could never get this car to start for her. It was amazing. She would go out there and try to start it. And it would crank and crank and crank and nothing. So then I go out there, and crank and crank and crank and crank and crank, and then finally it would come to life. And even on days where she never tried to crank it over, that car would start. I could always get that car to start. It's like that car would only start for me. And that's kind of how I figured that me and that car had a bond,
Today is not a good day. And so it lives. I love my car. And my car loves me.
I had to get rid of this car because there came a day where it didn't even want to crank. It did not sound like it was a starter issue because you wouldn't even get noise going to the starter. But then again, today, maybe I could have figured it out. Maybe it was the starter. Kind of always thought maybe it was the ignition switch. But I'll never know. I'll never know what it is. So I sold the car to a guy who scraps cars and whatnot. I think he gave me $100 for it, and he came and picked it up on a day where I had to work my job at Wendy's at the time. So before I came home from school, and before I had to go to work, I was able to get one more video of the car. After we pushed it out of the driveway, it was sitting for about a year at that point, close to a year maybe. And again, I was sad. I was even more sad that I wasn't going to be there to see the final, transportation of the car. But yeah, so this guy came and picked it up, and he hauled it away, and I thought he was going to scrap it. But fun fact, I didn't find this out until just a few years ago. I think it was right after I made the vlog of the Sunbird. My wife informed me after she'd seen pictures of my car after the accident and stuff, the crater and all that stuff. Well, the guy that I sold the car to, she happens to, her family once knew. And she said that that car was being driven after when he had it. So I guess after I sold my Sunbird to this guy who I thought was going to scrap it, I guess he turned around and he was able to fix it and get it running. So whatever the issue was, it must not have been that severe. So yeah, I guess it was out there on the road for a little while longer. I never saw it again. I never saw it after I got rid of it. But it kind of upsets me in a way that that's how that went down. So I really wish I could have had that car a little longer. That's more of a sentimental thing. But that car was a blast. Sunbirds are crappy cars, don't get me wrong. They're not the best cars. The older Cavaliers like that, they weren't made to last long. And mine was definitely on the verge of not lasting long. But I'll tell you what, man, I was so happy with that car. At the time, it was everything I ever wanted. And I can say that ever since I was a kid, I wanted a Pontiac to be my first car. And that's what it was. So there was definitely some success in that dream. And I went and looked at a Sunbird a few years ago for the vlog, about an hour or so away from here. There was a guy selling it. He had just restored it. The mileage was very low. It was 1 year older than mine. It was a 93, but it was the same trim, and it was basically the same car. There was not very many differences other than the color, and it had a center armrest up front. Everything else on that car, and the wheels were different, but everything else on the car was the same. And I went and looked at it just for nostalgic reasons. And it was really good to be in a Sunbird, especially one that was in amazing condition, and even the smell of the interior was just like mine. It had that significant smell, and it was a very nostalgic moment. I really wish I was able to give that guy his $3,000 for that car, because yeah, I would have taken it. Have I looked at Sunbirds on like the marketplace and Craigslist and stuff? I have. But the problem is, I don't know if they would be worth buying. I've considered trying to find one as a project, but it's just around here the problem is the condition of the bodies. They're rotting away and stuff. There's no point. There's no point in putting money into a car that's gonna be that old. And but I'll tell you what, if I had the opportunity to get my first car back, I definitely would, absolutely. So that's where we stand with that. The 94 Pontiac Sunbird. Alright, so we're down to 2. Ranking in second place, I would say, is the 01 Pontiac Aztek GT. I don't know if you guys are surprised by that or not. I don't know if you guys are surprised that it's not in first. I don't know if you guys are surprised that it ranked as high as it did. I don't know. But the 01 Pontiac Aztek GT. Yeah. You know, there's a whole... I could have made a whole series, you know, alone about the Aztek when I bought it. We bought it in January of 2018 for $400, about an hour away from here. It ran, but it needed intake gaskets and head gaskets while we were at it. It needed towed home, and just about everything else. It needed power steering lines, it needed brake lines, it needed transmission lines, it needed a new radiator, it needed 4 new struts, it needed tires, it needed... God, what else did I have to do to that thing? We basically rebuilt that car. That was, as I mentioned earlier, and you know, a lot of you guys watching this video probably know all about this car. I don't even know why I have to tell you guys about it, but you know, I bought it because I missed having my first Aztek so much. And when I decided to look for an Aztek, I really wasn't planning on buying one that was going to need so much work. I had already looked at a few. I looked at some that I didn't even document, to be quite honest with you. So I think I looked at a total of like 7 Azteks or something, you know. And I don't know, after the last one that I looked at, which was at a private car lot, they wanted a couple $1,000s for it. I think it was an 05. The mileage wasn't all that bad. It was under 100,000. It was silver. But it looked like it was messed with, honestly. It didn't look all original. It had a gauge cluster that had the driver information display on it, but the dashboard bezel didn't have buttons for it. So I think it was definitely messed with for some reason at some point. So after that, you know, I looked on Facebook, you know, and I ended up coming across this blue Aztek GT that I had seen months before for, I think they wanted $700 for it, and they knocked it down to $400, and that sparked my interest. I got in touch with the owners, and I think it was that night after I left work, we went up and looked at it in the freezing cold. It was snowing. They had it running, and it was running okay. It was a little loud. It needed a front exhaust manifold gasket. So the everything else on the car seemed to be in working order. I made arrangements, and I went up and we picked it up a few days later and towed it home. And I'll tell you what, I was like a kid on Christmas bringing that car home. I was so excited to have another Aztek in my possession, and I was really looking forward to fixing. Sorry, I was looking forward to fixing everything up with it. It was the first time I was tearing an engine apart, and doing other things like the lines and the radiator work, and even some electrical stuff with like the window switch, the driver's side window switch wasn't working. Turned out to be the connector that's in the dashboard was corroded. You know, I learned a lot with that car, and you know, there were frustrating times with it, but I was having fun doing it. You know, I was bringing that car back to life, and I knew once it was back to life, it was gonna be worth it, and it was. It was completely worth it.
No way. Yes! Yes! Yes, it lived! No way!
Once I had that thing on the road, and I drove it more than I was honestly expecting to. You know, I started to kind of use it as a daily driver from time to time, and I ended up using it to haul things. If I needed to, you know, haul, when we did our front yard, you know, I was hauling stone, rocks, and bags of gravel and stuff. And you know, it it did a good job. But you know, I also turned that Aztek into everything that I ever wanted it to be. You know, when I had wanted one of these cars when I was 13 and they first came out, you know, I wanted a fully equipped GT. I didn't really care if I didn't buy a GT, you know, this time, or if I did buy a GT, but you know, I had a GT in my possession. The best thing about it was it had the original wheels, the GT wheels, and it was the blue color. It had the gray and black interior. It had all of the features, obviously, because it was a GT. It had the 6-disc CD changer that I have kept alive quite a few times. It had the dual zone climate controls, which really didn't matter, but it was there. It had the information display. It had the sunroof. It had the Pioneer 10-speaker system with the controls in the back. And I even bought the leather seats to put in it. I found some awesome conditioned leather seats in the junkyard, and I bought them and I swapped the seats out because that was going to complete the whole perfect spec Aztek for me. Not only that, I found the storage tray that goes into the back, and I ended up with a tent. I have a brand new Aztek tent with mattress included. So I mean, I had just about everything. I was missing the backpacks. I was missing the bike racks. That might have been it. I can't remember what else there were, but basically I had everything that I wanted with that Aztek. I turned it into my dream Aztek. And I only got to drive it for just under 6,000 miles before I sold it. And I sold it to somebody who needed a vehicle. At the time, I started thinking about getting another project car, which was my other dream car, the Grand Am. But at the same time, I wasn't ready to let that car go. It still had some issues. It had a weird misfire at idle that I wasn't able to figure out quite yet. Thinking about it now, I think it was an internal issue. I don't know if it was a valve issue. Maybe the head that I had to replace wasn't as good as I thought. But the ignition side of it, the compression side of it, the fuel delivery side of it, all of that stuff was good. So I think it was maybe a valve issue or something. But nonetheless, I loved that car, and I also felt the need to help somebody out that I knew. So we sold it, and about 2 months later, it got totaled. Wasn't her fault. She was okay. Her kids were in the car, and they were okay. But she got hit into the driver's side by a Jeep, who then fled the scene. Honestly, I don't know if they ever figured out if they ever got the guy who did that or not. But nonetheless, it did the damage underneath for how old it was, and it was done. It was a totaled car. So, yeah, I don't know. I really do, in a way, regret giving it up. But at the same time, I know I was glad that I could help somebody for the time being. There was still life in that tech. It had a few more years before it would probably completely rot out in the back, but nonetheless, I would have just driven it until I couldn't drive it anymore. That was the plan, and we gave up on the plan and helped somebody else instead. So if I could have my '01 GT back, '01 Aztek GT, I most certainly would take that car back. I am still looking for an Aztek. I still look. I'm in no position to buy it right now, but I still look to see what's out there. And I'm pretty sure I am going to buy one again. I just don't know when. But it's going to happen because that car is just so cool and it's so unique. And it fills that one piece of childhood in me to have, and I'm going to make it happen at some point. So when I do, I hope that I can find one that's going to be in better condition so I can have it longer. I don't know if it's going to be a GT. I don't even know if it's going to be an '01. But I'm sure I'll find one. We'll give it some more time. We'll see where it goes, but yeah, second place, I definitely throw my Aztek GT there. So which car of mine that I've ever had would I want back the most? It is kind of surprising, but after really thinking about it, I picked my '99 Olds Alero. I've got a few reasons to pick the Alero. Number one would be that it's the very first car that I ever really got to pick for me. I didn't get to pick my Sunbird. That was my dad's decision. I didn't pick the Bonneville either. That was my mom's decision. But I just ended up getting it anyway. After she didn't want it. The Alero, I got to pick. And I'm glad I did. That car was an amazing car at the time.
Hello world. It's been a while. How are you? I haven't used my camera in a long time because my battery's bad. Well, I'm going to get my paycheck. And it probably ain't gonna be too much, but well, you don't know, but I know. So let's get it started. The camera's gonna fall. Oh, I almost made you fall.
Her name is Rihanna. It's on to replay on Q92.
Backstreet Boys! Woo! Well, let's see how bad my check's gonna be. $155.36. That was actually better than I thought it would be, and that's so far my highest paycheck. My last good one was $131. Hooray for me. This guy in front of me has his right signal on, and he just keeps on going. Blink, 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 blink. Why is he doing that? There's probably people looking at me, and they may be thinking I'm talking to myself. Kind of I am, in a way. Okay, that guy's bothering me now. He won't turn off that signal. Hey, he turned it off! Yay, celebrate!
It is basically a Grand Am in more of a subtle design. It's the same car, and that is why sorry. That is why I wanted it when I found it. The whole story behind that, again, there's a video. But the Alero was kind of found on mistake. I needed a car after the Bonneville brake line blew. And me and my cousin were looking at cars. I almost settled for a 99 Kia Sportage. It was green, but it was fun. It would have been the first SUV that I had. I don't remember much about it, but you know, it was nice. I liked it. It drove pretty well. I'm really glad I didn't get it though. But yeah, I took it back to this place that was selling it, and the guy selling it, he was a mechanic shop. These were all cars that he either got from an auction or he was fixing up to sell or something like that, you know. So he had a small line of cars for sale. There was indeed a Grand Am there, I remember. It was white. It was a white four-door Grand Am, but it was sold. It had a sold tag on it, so I didn't even bother looking at that, because maybe that would have been the one I ended up with, but it was already sold. So I found this Kia that he had. I parked it in the line, and I was waiting for the owner to come back. His son said he was out. But in the meantime, it's like hot outside, and I'm walking through this little line of cars, and there it is. There's a silver 99 Alero sitting there. It's not bad. It looks pretty decent. It's got a little bit of paint coming off on the front bumper. But the rest of the car is in pretty good shape. It's unlocked. I open it up. Keys in it. It's hot. So I just started it up because it's hot and I wanted to see if the air worked. Well, sure enough, it's got nice ice cold air conditioning. And as I'm sitting there cooling off, you know, I'm looking around, and you know, I've always liked the way that these Aleros look. I remember when I was, I think, 12 at the time, and the Alero was coming out. I had a poster of it from a car show. I wish I still had that thing. But I had this little poster of it. I always liked how these cars looked. I liked the interior setup. I liked the outside design, and you know, I just thought it was a cool car. I'm really starting to like this thing, and I told the guy, you know, the owner's son, I asked him if I could take this out instead. So we slapped a plate on it. He said, you know, go for it. So I get in it, and I drive this thing. It's got the 3400 V6, and tell you what, it's quick. I loved how the car handled. That was the biggest thing. I loved the cockpit. I loved, you know, how it was handling. It was steering so effortlessly. It had great throttle response. I had that car for like 10-15 minutes. I'm driving, you know, around town. I'm driving through neighborhood streets. You know, I take this car back to him, and I get out and I said, I want this one now, you know. So the owner came back, made a deal with him. He took my Bonneville with all of the damages that were wrong with it. He gave me over half off that Alero for the trade of the Bonneville. And yeah.
Red Lobster. This is where I work. I told you guys I do. Let's watch Michael order.
Hi, can I have your order, please?
Who's talking?
Yes, I would like,
I think everyone at home wants a fry.
Yeah.
I'm even watching this.
Let's go.
You know, we're living in 2005. If you don't stay in touch with your friends because they don't have a computer, that's pretty sad.
Oh, I'm the misfit of the Adams.
Yeah, I know. You are the misfits.
No parking. No parking.
Nah, that sign back there said no guns, so something different.
Right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to visit this family. And it's like 10:30 at night. Let's go. And I'm taking my phone because I haven't read my text yet.
During the time that I had the Alero, I didn't have any problems with it. I put tires on it at one point. Obviously, we did oil changes. We had the intake gaskets done, which was something he informed me needed to be done when I bought it. So I had that done about 3 months after I bought it. So we had that done. Motor was saved. I got rear-ended in that car, but it didn't do any damage. I'm really surprised. That car, you wouldn't have even known. So yeah, it was fine, no damage. Man, what else happened? I don't think I had really anything wrong with the time that I had that car. All the problems came after I gave it to my brothers. When I bought the car, it had 117,000 miles on it, almost 118. And oh no, the only thing that happened with me, I think, was a few weeks after I bought it, the water pump exploded. So I had to put a water pump on it. And that might have been it. I really can't think of anything else right now. But regardless, another reason why I think I would take this car back is because out of all the cars that I've had and all the cars that I picked to have, it was the longest lasting one. For a while, it was the longest lasting one in the family. So yeah, I had it for almost 2 years before I bought my Aztek. I gave it to my one brother. He drove it for a few years. Actually, he had it for a while. And then, I want to say he had it from 07 to 2013. And then he bought his G6, and then he gave it to my youngest brother, who had it from 13 to 15. And by the time he had it, it was just, it was tired. It had almost 200,000 miles on it. I think almost 195, to be honest with you. It was like right ready to turn over to 195 when we traded it in. But it needed a starter. It needed suspension work at that time. It needed, the rocker moldings were coming off. He just ended up peeling the rocker moldings off. It even lost the gas door. So it was just a tired car by the time that we were getting rid of it. I knew the time was coming that we were getting rid of it, so I made a whole video before I did the vlog series even. I just did a whole video going over a tour of the car. And you can just tell by the time that video was being made, it was pretty tired looking. It was still in pretty decent shape though. There really wasn't any rust on the outside of that car. It was still looking pretty decent. More paint was off the bumper, and it had huge chips of paint missing off the hood. I think the back end was okay. A couple scratches here and there, but the inside would have looked okay. Just it needed a good cleaning after all the years that we had it. It was, other than the bumper being messed up with the paint when I bought it, it was in really, really good shape. I don't have much video of the car. I don't have any pictures of the car when I bought it. I wish I did though. I wish I had more of that. So yeah, I mean, that car, it lasted 10 years with us, and it was just a blast to drive. I loved everything about that car. It drove a lot like the Grand Am, which is why I think I liked it so much, and that's why I had to have it. It just wasn't a Grand Am, but it was, who knows, it's the same car. But yeah, that would be the car out of all the cars that I've ever had that I honestly would like to have back the most. I probably could buy one if I wanted to. They're still out there. I still see them on, the Facebook Marketplace. I considered it before I bought the Grand Am, actually, but then I was like, I already had the Alero. I want the Grand Am. But if if I ever found one again, I would definitely love to have it. It was a great car, not just with me, but I mean for getting through 10 years, you know, it probably could have kept going if my brother didn't want to keep nickel and diming it, which is completely understandable. But yeah, it was awesome. I love that car, and I would definitely like to have it back out of all of the cars that I've had. I want it the most. I still got the key for it. This is the key that I used to use. I know because it's got paint on it inside the little symbol. And that came from work one day when I had to paint a bunch of fire extinguisher posts in the shop. And I had paint all over me. It was oil paint, oil-based, so it didn't come off and it stuck to everything I touched. And somehow it ended up in the key inside the little Oldsmobile thing. So this was my key. This was my remote. Doesn't make a difference now because the car no longer exists. It was scrapped. But yeah, I'd love to have that car back. So there you have it, guys. All 7 of the past cars that I've ever had, ranked from pretty much worst to best by how much I wouldn't mind having that car again. And you know, if I could, I would have them all. You know, I wish I didn't have to get rid of every car. I wish I was able to keep every car that I've had for one reason or another. But it's just not possible. It's not feasible. But man, that would be cool. But I hope you guys enjoyed this vlog. If you did, give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and check out teespring.com/stores/Mike's Vehicle Spotlight for all of your MVS and vlog merchandise. I really hope you enjoyed these stories, and again, if you want to learn more about each of the cars that I've mentioned, I have videos on all of these. The Sunbird, the Bonneville, the Alero, the 03 Aztek. I have individual vlogs about all of the stories. And then of course the Grand Prix, the Escape. I do have one on the Grand Prix, actually. And then my brother's in it too when he had it. But the Escape and the 01 Aztek, those are just various vlogs throughout the channel. But yeah, you guys want to learn more about all the cars that I've had, check the channel, and you'll find all of the videos there. So that's it. I will see you guys next time. I'm going to rest my throat now. I've been talking for a lot longer than I expected. I want to thank you for joining, and take care.